Okay, so I did a little tweaking. I've been rearranging my studio slash gym here. I've had to do some other purposes, so my audio was really bad in the last video. I've moved my microphone over to here and I've turned it up just a little bit, and hopefully it doesn't pick up too much background from my servers over there. So we're going to do the second video here now. We're going to jump into GameGuru Max and we are going to take a quick look at the interface, and then we're going to set up a terrain and possibly do a couple other things depending on time, and that's probably where we'll end this video. Just a quick overview setup thing. And then the next video we'll actually jump into maybe a little bit more level design, terrain editing, etc. Do that next step of it. So that's where we're going to go next, and I'll see you after the credits. All right, well, I'm back and I've got GameGuru open, and we're just going to go over the interface a little bit. Actually, this is the second time I'm doing it because I had the wrong button pressed on the Steam Deck for recording, and I had a great big overlay on the side covering up the right-hand menu. So we're going to go over this again. Practice is great. So we're open, and the first thing we're going to do is, you can see they've got this blue interface that they really like here, right? So I'm going to record, though, using a different interface style. There's other settings and things you can do here. I got to them through File and Settings. So I created this project in the first demo, and we're just going to go over it again. I'll delete a layer and I'll start from scratch. But so you turn off a bunch of things, show video on startup, hide keyboard shortcuts from all panels. I don't want to do that because I haven't learned them yet, but you can just toggle that on or off and it disappears, or during hide tutorials. You probably want to keep those and watch them occasionally as a reference. I'm going to remove it from mine, though. I don't need them. I've watched them all twice, and a couple of them a few extra times just to pick up on some nuances covered. However, that being said, you can leave them on for now, turn them off when you get used to them. Same with the shortcuts. So, but what I am going to do, you can enable custom colors, you can reset your interface, whatever. I've gone down here and I have changed my graphic settings to medium settings. And so I believe this is just for when I'm testing it. I don't believe it's for the final end screen thing, but it's probably easier on the GPU since I'm screen recording. I can always change that later when I'm making a project. But I wanted to make sure that I could record without any anomalies. This card's been running hard all day now. So I'm going to change the blue style, and I am going to change it. There's several styles here. You can go to darker style, which is just pretty much a gray interface. Or you can go to darker style, which is a nice black interface. I am going to just run it with the gray interface, darker style, and I'm going to leave it at that. Although it might not be enough contrast for on-screen viewing. You know what? Darker style it is, because you've got a lot of contrast there for doing these tutorials in. So, alright, so we're set. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to go and create a new level. Control N. All right, I'm going to delete this level, delete that level, yes, I'm going to connect this up to here, and I'm going to connect this up to here, connect this up to here, and I'm going to connect this up down here. Oh. Okay, so this is the storyboard. This is where you start to work. Over on the right are always options in any menu. This is consistent throughout GameGuru. On the left menu, on the left hand side, you're going to have all of your options. Basically things like your object browser, your group browser, you bring up your character generator, things like that. Those are all going to be on the left hand side. Then over on the right hand side, whatever you're working with are going to be the options and the properties and the ability to tweak or change. So those are all going to be on the right hand side. Across the top is going to be menu bar. You don't see it in this in the storyboard level here, but there's going to be different options of features, and we'll get into that shortly. So to start the process, you need to actually have a level. So we're clicking here, and it's going to prepare the terrain generator. So you need a terrain base map. Now, to start with, it's automatically generated one, but we're going to go over here to empty. So you choose in this area up here, your top right, you could choose these things called biomes. And we talked about them in the last video. And what biomes are a bunch of terrain mesh, water preset settings, environmental preset settings, environmental objects, and procedurally generated content flora that get placed into the scene, and it can then be manipulated and edited, but give you a good base starting point. If you're doing an interior, so say like a dungeon or like the inside of a warehouse or a building or something like that, or if you're just learning the basics and playing around with setting up behaviors and things to learn how they all work, you're going to go in here to the empty. And so the empty zone is an area where it's just empty, and you can work on this grid. And this grid is basically 10 units by 10 units. So, and I think each one of those squares, when you zoom in on them, is, I think it's 2 meters, give or take, just based on a player model standing beside it. When you enter the game, it's slightly taller than the player model, so I think it's roughly 2 meters or a little more than 2 meters. So just to give you a reference grid, because you could turn on a feature called snapping, which lets you bump items up against each other consistently and easily without overlapping or placing those objects inside of each other, and making a mess of the rendering mesh and confusing the system. So easy enough to do. You've got options on the side here. I'll quickly just cover those before we move into an actual terrain. So show editable area. Uncheck that, and the yellow bounding box goes away. Show 3D boundary, turns it from a 2D box into a 3D box. So where you can place your objects. If you've got height up and down, if you're building an interior dungeon, you may want to have, the walls set out or multiple layers and work within those for placement. You know what you're working with there. It gives you a good idea. Don't need that. It sets here random time of day. You can set it to whatever. You can turn that on or off. You've got a big list to choose from. I always like going around midday, but whatever. Everybody can do what they want. Morning's okay too. Auto-populate terrain. So what this does is this lets you put trees and vegetation in procedurally generated. Obviously, you're not going to have anything in this view generate, but in these other biomes, you will get things generating, auto-populating. And you can toggle that on and off, and then it'll reprocess. Import height map. Now, this is a feature, they actually have a contest going on for right now where you can bring in a height map and then make a zone from that. And so there's going to be a contest for that, and I think they're going to give away some content or something. I'm not entirely sure how that's going to work there. However, I might even enter that contest. We'll see. But what a height map is it's a black and white image, just a flat image of a terrain. I believe you can extract from Google Earth or Bing Maps, or there's sites out there you can get them from that utilize Google Earth and Bing Maps to generate them using the elevation values, and then you could take that, import that in, and create yourself your own map to then assign your terrain and edit as you wish. They have a demo. One of the demo games was done with it. It was set up using the Grand Canyon, and it actually looks really good. They brought a lot of other models and things in, but that's pretty cool. Like, that demo model is pretty awesome. So, and then there's height map scales. There's all sorts of stuff you can do with that. Yeah, I haven't worked enough with that to give you any more details on that, but it's basically a height map. So yeah, now then you change to different biomes. Oh, and you've got this scalable area size up here. So it's set for 2.5 kilometers right now. You can zoom that all the way down to 0.5 kilometer. But I can also zoom it up to 5 kilometers. So that's pretty decent size. I'm going to bring that back down again. And I'm going to leave it at about I'm going to bring it down to 0.75. You can also click over here and put in what you want. 0.75 of a kilometer. That works for me. All right. 0.7. We went to 0.7. All right. So that's 0.7 of a kilometer. Now what I want to do is I'm going to show you these, quickly go over these different binomes and just show you. So each one of these binomes, let me just click on, well, I'll work my way backwards. We'll click on Rainforest. So Rainforest is exactly as it says. So I'm going to scroll down here. By the way, the wheel on the mouse scrolls in and out. Right click rotates the camera view. So I've rotated the camera view and you can see everything off in the distance. But if I hit this camera, boom, changes me right back to top down and resets my camera. So you can do that at any point in time. And that's good for zooming in and out. It's very useful. So in this terrain, it procedurally generates as far as the eye can see, or according to the developer, as far as the eye can see. I don't know how big that actually goes. However, your game area or your game map is only going to take place in your yellow dotted line. However, the procedurally generated will disappear off in the distance to give you that appear. So if you jump into your game engine, say you're on top of this hill as your game area, then you would actually see this way off in the distance, potentially, depending on your level of detail and your fog settings and things. But you would potentially see that way off in the distance, and you wouldn't be able to go there, but it just gives you that surrounding environment and that immersive world concept, right? And I don't know if you can see this or not, but the sun is actually changing position in the sky. So the sun can travel, and it does travel, and it travels with your perspective. So if I zoom down here, just quick zoom down here, and then I zoom up here. Oh, let's go down lower. I can't see the sun anymore. The sun has set behind those mountains for me. So, and then shadows and everything will be cast. Now, I believe I have shadows turned off because of my medium details right now. I'm not sure exactly what that entails. But as you can see, so I've zoomed in here, and I have some banana trees, some palm trees, some other jungle canopy trees. There's some vines hanging down there, I believe. Let's see. Yeah, see there's some vines there. Oh, back up a bit. Vines hanging down, all sorts of stuff. And then way off in the distance here, there's a steep hill, flora, fauna, a bunch of grass has been auto-generated in. And these are all procedurally generated. So in every terrain, what you have is procedurally generated flora and fauna sitting on top of your deformable 3D mesh. So extremely efficient as far as computing resources go. Like, you do not work your system very hard at all, especially in smaller areas. So one thing when you're designing your levels, make sure, let me just do this again, boom. All right, make sure that if you're gonna put a ton of content in, that you work with a smaller area. If you're going to have less content in, and by content I mean extraneous models that you're either importing or using from their system or whatever, and dropping those into the system, because it's the more you have that it has to render out that's not procedurally generated, the harder work it is on your CPU, your GPU, your RAM, etc., etc., etc. So now this system, I have an i5 6th generation 6500 CPU in here. I have an 32 gigs of RAM, DDR400, and I have NVIDIA GTX 1650, not 1660, 7080, 1650 graphics card. The reason that my system is sitting at this level and I didn't use a more powerful machine or upgrade is twofold. One, I'm cheap. I don't have a lot of extra money to put into my hobbies. I'm a grown man with a family to provide for, payments, everything like that. Most of my money doesn't go into my hobbies. That being said, I also have several hobbies, and my money has to be split evenly between them all, than my extraneous money. So that is the primary reason. But the secondary reason is a consideration for how the systems run when you generate the game. This is a pretty clean system. It only does my video editing and my game development. I don't run anything else on here. I don't play games. I don't do much for web. I don't do any. It's clean, and they do what I need to. So that gives me a pretty consistent test base. So with that system, when I do a render out or a play game or a test mode, I've got a pretty good idea how this is going to run on today, 2022's lower end systems. So this system is significantly older generation. We're on generation 12 of Intel CPUs, and we're running like the 3090s or 3070 series GPUs. We've got some pretty powerful hardware and stuff out there. But if I can optimize the environment to look good, to have objects and models in there, and perform decent on medium settings and okay on high-end settings on the equipment I've got, it is going to run like a dream on anyone else's computer or anyone else that's got a gaming chip in their computer. So optimization is important, and that's why I develop on a slower machine. A lot of people get the fastest, biggest, greatest machines they can to develop on. I don't necessarily think that's a great strategy. Like, it's awesome to have that. I have another machine that's like ultra powerful. It's got like 24 cores in it, and it's top of line. I game on that. I do not build my games on that. So I want to make sure that those performance levels are there. So other people go the other way. They develop on the highest end machine they can, and then they test them on lower machines. Whatever works for you. Just wanted to explain how that worked. And I know it's taking up some time, but we'll get back into it. So that's the rainforest biome. Then you've got the mountain biome. And so you can see different textures, very mountainous area. And you can see the water is different here too. So if I zoom in on this water, you can see the mountainous water. The reflections and everything are pretty good still, even in medium. But you can see that it's a little bit gray, a little bit of a blue tint. I go back to rainforest, zip over the mountain here. And you can see the base ground texture is different, a little bit of reddy, muddy, clayey soil or whatever. But the water is pretty silty. So it's darker color, it's more silty. And you can change all that. And you can adjust that even once the biome's set up. Get that nice reflection on the water there, eh? That's pretty cool. All right, so then back to mountain again. And we're going to zoom out. The one thing I did notice, however, is that these mountains look awesome from a distance. But if I zoom in on this rock surface here, you'll see it start to add more and more and more and more detail to get closer. And now, I don't know what that is. A caterpillar freaking swarm on a tree or something. I'm not sure what that's all about. I'm sure they'll probably get comments about it and work on that. But, I mean, you only back out to there and it looks great again. So that's my only criticism, is it getting too close up to that rock texture, and it's like, I don't know, needs a little work, but whatever, that's fine. Back over here to canyon. There's the next biome. Now this one is a particularly nice looking biome. You've got mixed trees again, all procedurally generated. You've got some dead trees sitting in the mix. You've got some flora and fauna. You got some different ground textures, but then you come out here, first thing you'll notice is you got these nice cliffs, and these cliffs look a lot better than the other cliffs did. They're much straighter, more what's the word I'm looking for, more just more organic-y, less mothy looking. Like you can see that the cliff looks pretty good. Like there's some broken rock detail on there, then you got a few trees and things sticking out. Looks really good. Over here, the water, again, it's different. And then you'll see here that it's got a different ground texture again, a little more reddy, a little more sandy. But if you go up past the cliffs, you can see where they've, at higher elevations, they've actually worked some more green in underneath the trees and stuff. So it's all adaptive and it's all procedural. And then way off in the distance there, you can see it's changed a lot for the mountains. Like, let me zip up here. Now this is something I'm going to point out. It's been pointed out by other YouTubers before. They got this weird fractalization of the clouds happening in here. I will say though, this is not, I repeat, this is not GameGuru Max's issue. This is the Wiccan engine, because when I was watching Games from Scratch's Wiccan engine demo, they had the exact same thing going on with the clouds in the Wiccan demo. So I believe it's something with procedural generation of the clouds, or how fractal or whatever, fractal noise. I'm not sure what it is, but it had the same issue. So this is not a GameGuru issue per se, as it is just on some sort of an artifacting or rendering issue from the underlying engine. Now that being said, it's probably easy enough fixed if you really care about it, but as soon as you scroll just a little bit or change your view, you don't even notice it anymore. Like, it's not there, and then once you're down at ground level, it's pretty much gone. But I just wanted to zoom out here and show you the view and the expanse. You know, very canyon-esque. Right, moving on. Plains, which I believe Plains is probably the first terrain that they generated, because it really is fairly lackluster, comparatively speaking, to the other ones. Now you've got your procedurally generated rolling hills and a little bit of textures and stuff. The water is slightly different blue, lots more reflection in it. But you zoom in on your plains, and your texture is, you know, pretty standard texture for plains used 10 years ago. So, you know, not bad, not horrible, pretty standard, tiles nicely, I guess. But definitely, when you go to any of the other terrains, the ground texture, it definitely seems like they put in a lot more effort into that base texture. Whatever, just something I noticed. Not complaining. It's perfectly fine and usable. One thing I will do here, though, because they have it off by default for plains, but I'm going to turn on trees, and I'm going to turn on vegetation. So now what you get is you get these random clumps of procedurally generated trees and things. I'm going to zoom over here across the water towards my playable zone. Again, any area you want to play or model or use as your level is going to be set into your playable zone. Now, however, I'm just going to zoom up to the sky for a minute here. So we're on this river, and there's a nice estuary there, there's a river there. Playable zone is right in the middle. I'm going to actually just zoom back out a bit here. And I'm going to grab my playable area, and you can take it and you can move it wherever you want. And I'm going to drop it right there. So there, now I've got my editable area. I can zoom back in again. I've got a little bit of trees in it. I probably should drag it over this way a bit more. There. Then I got more trees in here. Now one thing I have noticed is it does re-render. When you move your playable area, it re-renders the terrain. So I'm not sure what that's all about, but it does re-render it. So anyway, so you zoom in, and again, one of the reasons I think this is one of the first levels that they did, even though these are spectacular quality. So I zoom in, you can get a really good look at these. Come down to the ground, and there we got that one's not, there's not so much light on that one. Let me come around this side and just turn. Sorry, trying to navigate here a bit better. This one will have some more better light on it. And you can see that there is a pretty good quality model here. So this is, looks to me like it is a poplar tree. Get a little bit closer. You can see the bark pattern on this tree. But then, if I go to any other tree, See the bark pattern's different there? So bark pattern's different over here. Bark pattern's different here. So there is probably a handful of different trees that I don't know how many, but I'm going to say probably at least 3 or 4 different texture patterns that they map the trees to. It might even be randomized tiling of the mesh or whatever, I don't know. But it's nice, there's variety in there. Like these ones it looks like those actually look like almost the same 3, except this is a lower band here, then 2 higher up here, 2 higher here, 1 up there. This one looks more or less the same, except this one has another band up here and this one doesn't. So anyway, so they're not all identical. Some of them are pretty close and others are different. There's another 2, but it's got another thing over here across from this one, and then 2 up here. So yeah, so they're different. Anyway, that was basically, that's the plains. Then we're going to go to the desert. And much like you would expect, well, it's a desert. So, but what I am going to do is zoom out a little bit here. And I'm just going to grab this block and I'm going to bring it over here. Let me just zoom, that's what we want. So now I can zoom in here. You can see I've got the cactuses being rendered. There's not much else for bushes or anything. And again, they're different cactuses. This cactus is different from that cactus, different from that cactus. So it's like, so they've got at least a handful of different cactus models that are being procedurally dumped into here. And then you can see it's a nice quality sand texture. You can see that. That's pretty good ground. But then you go up here and it gets a bit rougher. And you can see the roughness. But then as I get closer, it looks pretty good. So you got a pretty nice desert area there. And of course, being a desert, there ain't a whole lot to look at, but again, procedurally generated off in the distance. A lot you can do with it. Not a lot of water. I mean, you can bring the water area up. You can bring the water height up and give yourself a bunch of water if you want, or make the valleys deeper. Let's try this. You can adjust these things on the fly. Let's go with some real deep valleys here. There we go, and then we're going to bring the height up a bit. There, see? So now we've just completely changed. Zoom in. There we go. Might be a good place to put like a mine entrance going in or something or whatever, I don't know, underground, something. But you can see that everything's changed, again, just based on your settings. So you can totally adjust. And you can enter noise and stuff too. Let me zoom out a little bit here. I want to get a good view of that. So you can add noise. We add a bunch of noise in here. See, that totally changes the type of desert now. Now we got these sharp peaks and stuff, almost like an alien planet. You know, we can bring that noise right back down. A little closer to where I was at. There we go. Noise iterations 10. I'm not sure what some of these do, but you can mess around with those and play and figure it out. But anyway, yeah, you can totally change your landscape. Hey, look, we got a little freaking oasis there. Okay, next is snow, because I'm going to come back to forest. All right, so what we've got here, Winter Wonderland. You got your snowy trees, your less snowy trees, a few different makes and models of them. This one kind of looks like a cedar tree. That one looks like a spruce or a hemlock. That one there looks like a bit of a pine. So you got quite a bit. Let's see if we can find some water here somewhere. There's my level marker. Let's just back out of here. I'm going to take this level marker. We're going to center it right there. Boom. Alright. Now we're going to zoom in. Now you saw there for a second there were a bunch of trees and things there, right? So what that is it's procedurally generating every time you move your marker, your zone. And what happens is that it detected they were underwater, so it nuked them out. Now, some grasses don't nuke out, some do. You can also see that water is much more of an icy blue. I have some weird artifacting here. That's happened since I updated my video graphics driver the other day. While I was troubleshooting the install play mode here, so I'm not sure what that's all about. But anyway, zoom in a bit. And as we get closer, you can see the grass start to come through, and it's just like frozen icy grass. So there we go, and there's a little bit underwater there. So like I said, some of the grass survives under the water. Now you can come in with the terrain editor later and delete those as you see fit. So not really a super big deal. So I did find that the winter terrain makes these rougher edges around the lakes and stuff. So you can smooth all that out. There's lots of terrain tools, and we'll go into that into the next video when we're actually modifying our terrain. But now we're going to go over here to forest, and this is what we're actually going to work with today. Is we're going to work with forest. And now this seeding, I don't want to be on the lake there, so I want to find a small lake somewhere here. So I'm going to zoom way out, because my idea is going to be actually, you know what? I'm going to do it instead in the middle of this lake. So what I'm going to do is take this over to here. Here's my zone. Now my zone size is set pretty small. I'm going to actually bring that up to 1 kilometer for what I want to do here in this little thing. Actually, maybe bigger. 1.5 maybe. There we go. We're going to go 1.5 kilometers on this one. But maybe we're going to go to a different lake here. I'm going to go to this lake up here. Perfect. Alright. So there we are. 1.46 kilometers by 1.46. And the reason behind this is because I'm going to clear a little bit of this out. I'm going to make a little bit more of a usable terrain area. Raise up these a bit so there's a little more walk around zone on the outside. What I'm going to do is I'm going to build a little island on here, and that's going to be kind of where we do a few behaviors and things. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have a teleport system to come on and off of the island. And then from there we can go out and adventure and shoot bad guys or whatever. It'll be a zombie sort of theme thing. But anyway, that gives me a pretty good area to work with. The only thing that I want to change, I think, let's just see if I can come down here. What I want to do is change I don't know if I can. I wanted to change the noise seed value. Maybe I'll just turn the noise down here. And then that might have done it. Yeah, there we go. I think that I got a little less trees there now. Let's just see. Yeah. We're going to leave it at that. I'll have to play around with those more, figure out what those do in this particular instance. I'm not entirely sure. However, this is going to give us a good little zone to start with, so we're going to do that. So now what we do is we hit Generate Terrain and open the level editor. We're going to call this Demo Game. No, actually, because we might add more levels later. So we're going to call this Island home. Save level. Now we're in the editor. So now we can actually see our nice little lake here. So I'm going to go over here to the storyboard. Yes, I want to save. Saving is important to do all the time. And now you can see we are at Island Home. So we can go in and edit that whenever we need to. And from there, we are in a good spot. So I'm going to leave it here. And then we're going to come in on the next video. And from there, what we're going to do is start shaping our terrain and setting up our little island home. So come back for the next lesson, terrain editing.